I'm Terry, your recovered alcoholic, whatever I am tonight. Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put into our webcast and podcast, website and podcast. We record in audio. Feel free to use our podcasts on our website, along with your big book as a resource if you miss the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so you can follow along. In accordance with our group conscience on October 16, 2023, we will also be posting our podcast on YouTube. We feel that this is an effective way to carry our message to those seeking recovery in AA. Okay, tonight's recap will start on page, I have that, is it 37?
37.
And end on page, I don't know.
39.
39. Okay. Our study tonight would start on page 39 and end on page 41.
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a couple of announcements. We will have a group conscience for our group on, let me find the date. March 18th, it's a Monday. Nope, March 19th. Anyone or everyone is welcome to attend. Only home group members of record prior to the meeting starting will be eligible to vote. We will also have our fourth step workshop this coming month, not tomorrow, well, not yesterday, Monday, next Monday on March 4th. Our fourth step workshop in this room at 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central Time. And for those of you who are new to our meeting or new to Zoom, we are a raised hand meeting when we get to comments. And if you're not familiar with how to put your hand up, if you hit the three buttons on the lower right hand side of your screen, it should give you a spot, a menu that says reactions. And once you go into reactions, that should give you an option to raise your hand. And then as you're called on, we will lower your hand. And I believe that is all I have. So, thanks, Travis. Good to see you. Good evening, everyone. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and my name is Trish. Thank you, or welcome to the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation, followed by our family's foglight prayer. And Terry, you're muted.
Okay, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Terry. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as to not distract others or yourself.
We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order hands are raised. And just a reminder that profanity offends no one.
Absence of profanity offends no one. From the foreword to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
Our meditations suggestions are focus your breath and posture. Breathe in God and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study. And let's bring in those monks. And let's open up with our family's foglight prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a foglight, so that those who are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Okay, now it's time for our secretary report. Pinky, come on in.
Thank you, Terry. Hi, my name is Alyssa, and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Pickled Cat to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Cat.
Thanks, Alyssa. Hi, I'm Kat. I'm an alcoholic. Recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. We ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our big book study seriously. Because of this, chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rates was as follows. From the foreword to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA, and really tried. 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse. And the remainder, those who stayed on AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
I don't see anybody new tonight. Oh, hi, Alexis. Welcome.
Welcome, Alexis. And then the recovered alcoholics. Those are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
Not that I see.
If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you, and see you all next week.
Thank you, Pinky. And from chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book studies to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Okay, let's go. Welcome in. Steph is our traditionalist for tonight. And what tradition are you on, Steph?
3.
3. Okay.
Hey everybody, I'm Stephanie, recovered alcoholic. So the short version of tradition 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. The long form, our membership ought to include all who suffer from alcoholism. Hence, we may refuse none who wish to recover. Nor ought AA membership ever depend on money or conformity. Any 2 or 3 alcoholics gathered together for sobriety may call themselves an AA group, provided that, as a group, they have no other affiliation. All right, well, that's pretty self-explanatory there. I did find something interesting that I didn't know, is that tradition 3 is the only tradition that was in print in AA literature in 1939 on forward to the first edition, page XIV. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. The rest of the traditions didn't come out until the book that was published in 1946. So, we don't want anything from you except for you to be here. If you're still drinking and you're here, that's okay too. We just want you to keep coming back. We don't ask you for money. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You can sit there and look at your phone if you want to. we hope that you would listen to us, but we just want you here. And if you say that you're a member of AA, then you are a member of AA. Just like nobody else can declare whether you're an alcoholic, nobody else can declare whether you're a member of AA. That's up to you. I think that's about all I've got.
Thank you.
I've got a blank space here, so I'm assuming that's all I've got for right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Steph. You've done a great job. And next week we have a new traditionalist coming in. So it's now time for our weekly installment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as it's described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. What follows is one of the things we often hear, along with what the Big Book has to say on the subject. And one of the things we hear in meetings a whole lot is there are no musts in AA. Cindy, can you come in and tell us what it says on page 73, on paragraph 5 about that, please?
Hi there, Cindy, recovered alcoholic. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world.
Thank you.
Okay, as we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book Study Guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 37, which will be read tonight by Nancy. So on 37, you may think is where it starts, Nancy.
And that'll be followed up with our study portion read by Larry. And after the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back at where our study portion began on page 39, where Larry starts reading. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is that we're going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep or maybe a cute puppy in one of the screens or just some notification asking for you to wrap it up so that we can get moved to someone else.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, i.e. a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group. And Terry, do you want to give this part a shot, or do you want me to take it?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay, so how we arrived at this part, we didn't just open the book tonight and say, hey, this is the page we're going to study tonight. This is a 94-week study, and we read about a page and a half each week, and we start on the title page where we read our first promise, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And then we read through the preference, each of the forwards, the doctor's opinion, and the Bill's story, all telling us about what our problem is. And then we explore the solution through There Is a Solution, more about alcoholism, and We Agnostics. And then we learn about our program of action, how it works into action and working with others. In our pre-Al-Anon chapters, To Wives, The Family Afterward, and To Employers. And then our last chapter, A Vision for You. We also spend a few weeks reading Dr. Bob's Nightmare, and we spend 2 weeks reading the traditions. And all of this is done in the question and answer format that Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff wrote. Through the study, we visit Appendix 2, Spiritual Experience, 3 times, but then we wrap up our study, week 94, with 1 week all by itself, a standalone week for spiritual experience, because the spirituality is a really important part of what we do here. And then when we finish that, we go all the way back to the title page and the preface, and we start all over again. So we're in our 4th year, we're in our 3rd season, and we're on week 27 of 94. So hang on and keep coming back so you can help us all get through the book together. Thank you.
Well, before we start the recap, we will need 6 or 7 virtual hands raised. If you would like to be one of our answer readers, please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded in audio only, so that we can put it onto our website. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce a recap reader, which is Nancy.
Nancy, alcoholic. You may think this an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched, for this kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim did not upon the consequences. But there was always a curious mental phenomenon that paralleled with our sound reasoning. There inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves, in all earnestness and sincerity, how it could have happened. In some circumstances, we have gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we begin to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be. Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say for jaywalking. He gets the thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warnings. Up to this point, you would label him as a foolish chap, having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him and he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs. On through the years, this conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer warn. His wife gets a divorce, and he is held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out of The day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but isn't we who have been through the ringer have to admit if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit this exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol has been involved, have we been strangely insane? It's a strong language, but isn't it true? Some of you are thinking, yes, what you tell us is true, but it doesn't fully apply. We admit we have some of these symptoms, but we have not gone to the extreme you fellows did, nor are we likely to, for we understand ourselves so well after what you have told us that such things cannot happen again. We have not lost everything in life through drinking, and we certainly do not intend to. Thanks for the information. That may be true of certain non-alcoholic people who, though drinking foolishly and heavily at the present time, are able to stop or moderate because their brains and bodies have not been damaged as ours were. But the actual or potential alcoholic, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking on the basis of self-knowledge. This is a point we wish to emphasize and re-emphasize, to smash home upon our alcoholic readers as it has been revealed to us out of bitter experience. Let us take another illustration. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And Larry, come on in with this week's reading.
Brad is partner in a well-known accounting firm. His income is good. He has a fine home. He's happily married and the father of promising children of college age. He has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone. If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred. To all appearance, he is a stable, well-balanced individual, yet he is an alcoholic. We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters. It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest for his nerves. The doctor initiated strongly that he might be worse than he realized. For a few days he was depressed about his condition. He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether. It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so. In spite of his character and standing, Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem. We told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded that he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could not do nothing about it himself. He was positive that this humiliating experience, plus the knowledge he had acquired, would keep him from sober rest. Excuse me. Of the rest of his life. Self-knowledge would fix it. We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day we were told that he was back in the hospital. This time he was quite shaky. He soon indicated that he was anxious to see us. The story he told is most instructive, for here was a chap absolutely convinced he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless. Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellas said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again. I'd rather appreciated your ideals about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink, but I was confident it could not happen to me after what I had learned. I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows, that I had been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard. In this frame of mind, I went about my business, and for a time all was well. I had no trouble refusing drinks, and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter. One day, I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau. I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that. Physically, I felt fine. Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries. My business came off well. I was pleased and knew my partners would be too. It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. I went to my hotel, leisurely dressed for dinner. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all, nothing more. I ordered a cocktail and my meal. Then I ordered another cocktail. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball would be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and had one. I remember having several more that night and plenty the next morning. I have a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane bound for New York and of finding a friendly taxicab driver at the landing field instead of my wife. The driver escorted me about for several days. I know little of where I went or what I said and did. Then came the hospital with unbearable mental and physical suffering.
Thank you, Larry. And we will go back up to page 39 now, where Larry started reading, and with our question and answer format. And our lineup tonight will be Nancy, William, Jim, Zane, Pinky, and Kat. So, Nancy, the first question will come to you. But first, Terry has a comment, and she'll have a couple comments coming in tonight.
Please speak.
You are very staticky, Terry. Try again.
Okay. Sir, ask questions from a script by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff. The answers to the questions will be sentence by sentence coming directly out of this week's study, beginning with the first sentence and end with the last.
Thank you.
Was that any better?
That was a little bit better. You may just need to make sure that you're moving closer in when it comes to the comment time.
Okay. Okay, so we are ready to start this week's study. As we study Fred's story again, look for the similarities. comments.
Thank you. And Nancy, coming to you first. What was Fred's profession?
Fred is partner in a well-known accounting firm.
Thank you. And if all of our answer readers could unmute, please. And William, a two-part question. Was he in good shape materially, and how was his home life?
His income is good. He has a fine home, is happily married, and the father of promising children of college age.
Thank you.
He-
And
he has
Jim,
no
what
type-
kind of personality did he have? Jim?
Oh, that is me.
Yeah, that is you.
Yes, he has so attractive a personality that he makes friends with everyone.
Thank you. And Zane, how was his business life?
If ever there was a successful businessman, it is Fred.
Thank you. And Pinky, did he appear to be a really normal person, doing well in every area of his life? Pinky, your hand went down, so I'm going to skip you. And I'm going to re-ask that question to Kat.
To all appearance, he is a stable, well-balanced individual.
Thank you. And Nancy, back to you. What was his one small problem?
Yet he is an alcoholic.
Thank you. And William, a three-part question. When had the AAs first seen Fred? Where did they meet him? And why did he say he was there?
We first saw Fred about a year ago in a hospital where he had gone to recover from a bad case of jitters.
Thank you. And Jim, a two-part question. Had he experienced this before, and how did he feel about it?
It was his first experience of this kind, and he was much ashamed of it.
Thank you so much. And Zane, a two-part question. Could he admit that he was an alcoholic, and what rationalization did he come up with?
Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he came to the hospital to rest his nerves.
Thank you. And Kat, back to you. What did the doctor try to impress on him?
The doctor intimated strongly that he might be worse than he realized.
Thank you. Nancy, how were his spirits?
For a few days he was depressed about his condition.
Thank you. And William, what decision did he make?
He made up his mind to quit drinking altogether.
Thank you. Jim, a two-part question again. Did he have any doubt that he could manage that decision? And was he apparently successful at other areas of his life?
It never occurred to him that perhaps he could not do so, in spite of his character and standing.
Thank you. Terry, you are muted.
Comment, was Bill W. successful in every other area of his life? Were you successful in every other area of your life?
Thank you. And Zane, a two-part question. What was it Fred would not do, and what would Fred not accept?
Fred would not believe himself an alcoholic, much less accept a spiritual remedy for his problem.
Thank you. And Kat, what did the AAs tell him?
We told him what we knew about alcoholism.
Thank you. And Nancy, back to you with a three-part question. Did he express any interest? To what did he concede? And but he was a long way from what?
He was interested and considered that he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself.
Thank you. And William, with the humiliation he had experienced and the knowledge the AAs had given him, what was he certain he could do?
He was positive that his humiliation experience plus the knowledge he had acquired would keep him sober the rest of his life.
Thank you. And Jim, what did Fred believe would fix him?
Self-knowledge would fix it.
We'll see about that. And Zane, a year later, what were the AAs told? 2 sentences, please.
Okay. We heard no more of Fred for a while. One day we were told that he was back in the hospital.
Thank you. And Kat, in what condition was he?
This time he was quite shaky.
Thank you. Nancy, who was it he indicated he wanted to see?
He soon indicated he was anxious to see us.
Thank you.
Comment. Would this indicate he had paid the price of admission? That he had developed a desire to stop drinking?
Thank you. And William, what was his excuse for drinking? And it's a really long sentence.
The story he told is most instructive. For here was a chap absolutely convinced that he had to stop drinking, who had no excuse for drinking, who exhibited splendid judgment and determination in all of his other concerns, yet was flat on his back nevertheless.
Thank you. And Jim, a 2-part question. With what was he impressed, and what did he not believe?
Let him tell you about it. I was much impressed with what you fellows said about alcoholism, and I frankly did not believe it would be possible for me to drink again.
Thank you. And Zane, what ideas impressed him the most? And please stop at the comma.
Okay, I'd rather appreciate your ideas about the subtle insanity which precedes the first drink.
Comment. Remember, the AAs only told him about the disease of alcoholism and bore down on the subtle insanity that precedes the first drink, the alcoholic mind. They had made no mention of the solution they had found.
And Zane, let's finish out that sentence. And your question is, of what was he confident?
But I was confident it would not happen to me after what I had learned.
Thank you. And Kat, why did he feel self-confident he could manage his decision to never drink again? And you get 2 sentences, please.
I reasoned I was not so far advanced as most of you fellows, that I had been usually successful in licking my other personal problems, and that I would therefore be successful where you men failed. I felt I had every right to be self-confident, that it would be only a matter of exercising my willpower and keeping on guard.
Thank you. And Nancy, back to you with a 2-part question. In that frame of mind, he did what? And how was everything going?
In this frame of mind, I went about my business, and for a time all was well.
Thank you. And William, a 2-part question. What was it he was having no trouble with, and what did his alcoholic mind begin to wonder?
I had no trouble refusing drinks and began to wonder if I had not been making too hard work of a simple matter.
This is the equivalent of a chronic alcoholic's mind, believing the owner of that mind can get by without taking the steps. That just going to meetings is enough, and then believing that even meetings are unnecessary. That is the moment we order the next drink, sometimes months or years before we decide to take a drink. Then the drink, then the drug, etc.
Thank you. And I think I'm on Jim. Where did he go on business?
One day I went to Washington to present some accounting evidence to a government bureau.
Thank you. And Zane, was this a new experience for him?
I had been out of town before during this particular dry spell, so there was nothing new about that.
Thank you. And how did he feel physically, Kat?
Physically, I felt fine.
Thank you. And back to you, Nancy. What problems or worries did he have?
Neither did I have any pressing problems or worries.
Thank you. William, how did his business in Washington go?
Well, my business came off well. I was pleased, and me and my partner would be too.
Thank you. And Jim, what kind of day had it been?
It was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon.
Thank you. Zane, what did he do after he completed his business for the day?
I went to my hotel and leisurely dressed for dinner.
Thank you. And Kat, as he went into the dining room, what insane thought did he have? 3 sentences, please.
I'm sorry.
As I
kind
crossed.
of lost my thought. As I crossed the threshold of the dining room, the thought came to mind that it would be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That was all. Nothing more.
Thank you. And Nancy, how did he act on that insane thought?
I ordered a cocktail and my meal.
That's what.
And then what did he do, William?
Oh, then he ordered another cocktail after dinner.
Hold on, William.
He ordered another cocktail.
Oh.
He ordered another cocktail.
And then Jim, he had dinner, and then what?
Oh, after dinner, I decided to take a walk.
Thank you. And Zane, after he returned to the hotel, what did he do?
When I returned to the hotel, it struck me a highball would be fine before going to bed. So I stepped into the bar and had one.
That's 3.
And Kat, he remembered what after the 3rd drink?
I remember having several more that night and plenty next morning.
And Nancy, a 2-part question. He then had a shadowy recollection of what, and who did he hook up with at the landing field?
I have a shadowy recollection of being in the airplane bound for New York and of finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of my wife.
Terry, you're muted.
I don't have a comment
Oh,
yet.
okay. The comment is, could it be that his wife knew he had been drinking and sent a taxi cab for him rather than going to pick him up herself? And William, what did they do and for how long?
The driver escorted me about for 7 days.
And Jim, what did he remember of all this?
I know little of where I went or what I said and did.
Thank you.
Have you ever had a similar experience? Blackout?
And Zane, you get our final question tonight. Where did he wind up with, and with what?
Then came the hospital with the unbearable mental and physical suffering.
Have you suffered unbearably after drink?
Nah, never.
Oh, not at all. So I want to thank all of our readers for answering the questions, and we are now open for comments, questions, spiritual experiences, or any experiences that you have had with the portion that we've read. So let's go. Who's gonna be first? Hi, Lisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa, I'm an alcoholic. Oh, I identify all over the place. Making my mind up to quit drinking many times. And just, I never realized I couldn't do it on my own, or stay stopped. That the knowledge that, that I learned through the years wouldn't keep me sober. And that I couldn't fix it myself. Realizing this time around about the insanity of this disease. And that never crossed my brain. That never came into my brain before. And the insanity that precedes the first drink. And, you know, looking back, boy, you know, that was like months for me. I was just miserable, you know, and that thought process I was in, and you know, and I always thought, you know, that my willpower, I can do this, and staying on guard. Oh yeah, so me. And let's see, you know, and the nothing new part. You know, nothing happened. Nothing could happen. It could be a sunny day, a rainy day. You know, I can remember. Oh, it's time to go to the liquor store. The first time we had a fire in the fireplace every year. I mean, it was just anything. So it wasn't like anything set me off. And I remember thinking that I wasn't that bad because I don't drink because I'm upset about anything. It's just, I mean, just excuse after excuse. And, you know, and for no reason, the thought just come into my mind, you know. Oh, and going out to eat, and oh, wouldn't that be nice? Or seeing somebody walk by with a nice wine glass, you know. I don't know how many times that happened. I mean, I stay out of restaurants now. I can get takeout, but you know, and also you know, different blackouts and waking up and not realizing what I said or what I did, and you know, checking my phone, and seeing that I made calls to, you know, family or something at odd hours of the night, and just, oh, the shame and the guilt, and what did I say? And, you know, and towards the end, that unbearable mental and physical suffering. You know, a few weeks back, I was in another big book meeting that I do on Mondays, and we were talking about that, and you know, I thought, you know, I thought it was like my blood sugar. I don't have diabetes or anything. I just thought my blood sugar was crazy, and you know, so I stopped drinking the ginger ale, and I started with like seltzer water and stuff like that. But I still got it, you know. And I can some of the people in the meeting are like, Lisa, you know, that's alcohol poisoning. The way you know, I was like trembling inside and shaky, and you know, yeah. And I wouldn't let that come into my mind. Then I'd have to stop drinking, you know. So I do some more fiber to try to control my blood sugar. And I mean, just the things that my brain just told me to make it okay for me to drink, the insanity. And I'm just so grateful that I'm starting to realize this. And I love these meetings. And like last night, I was saying, I stayed away from big book and 12-step meetings like the plague for years. And they're my favorite ones now. And I'm just very grateful for that. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. Zane, come on in.
Hey, Zane Alcoholic. Yeah, good share. I lost where I was going now, but about the old ideas. With, you know, what I had learned, I would so far advance more than you fellas, and that was what I thought when I first came into Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, I'll just come in, I'll go for a few weeks, and I'll get the knowledge, and then I'll be fine. thankfully, I started with a meeting the same as this, same sort of format in a big book study, and I learned that you can't that self knowledge doesn't work. It's a lie, but my ego will tell me that it's okay to have a drink or whatever, and yeah, I'm just so grateful I don't have to live like that today. What else was there? Yeah, that's all I got. Thanks. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Hi, Larry. Larry, your hand popped up, then it popped back down. So are you coming in?
Yeah, I'm coming in. I don't know why it popped down, but anyway, it's good to be in a meeting. I this reading always takes me back. I was just so wrapped up. I remember my last 10, 12 years of alcoholism. I was wrapped up in the lifestyle of alcohol, and it had become an everyday lifestyle to me. I was a professional gambler, and so gambling and alcohol was an everyday issue. I'd go to the casinos in Las Vegas, and that's where I got my alcohol and free drinks. I thought I was doing well. It'd been a lot cheaper if I'd have just bought my alcohol, but I had two addictions going on at the same time, and it was part, it was part of my makeup, and it had me going down this road of destruction. I I realized, I have stopped alcohol, and I haven't gambled in years. But I took a trip to Florida, just last week, and alcohol didn't enter into my mind, but I had a young man that I was driving down there for some legal reasons that I was helping out, and we stopped at a truck stop, and I noticed him and his friend had went into a truck stop. They had an area in there that had slot machines. I don't think they actually, I'm not sure, but I don't think they actually pay out money, but they may pay out little things for the truck stop or something. I'm not sure what they pay out. I didn't stay there long, but I saw them in there, and I went immediately in there, and my eyes fixed all the way around the little room in there, looking for my machine, the machine that I would gamble on. And I mean, it was just an automatic thing. Luckily, it wasn't there. It was more of just four watermelons or four peaches, and different kinds of machines like that. It didn't have black, card machines, slot machines for playing cards or Keno or things like that. So I was okay. I didn't care for the games that were on there, but it, what I know of myself is, you know, if I sat down and I started, the next thing my mind would say is, you know, if somebody set a drink down, I would, of course, automatically would be an automatic thing to take it, because that's how my body is programmed. But my mind would say it's time for a drink. You know, this thing is not an absolute thing, and I feel like I'm spiritually fit, you know, but it was a scary thing when I went in there, because I know myself, I know my weaknesses, and that was the first time that I'd ever had a close call of in gambling for years that I even thought about. But I did. I actually did, and so now I'm you know, I'm faced with that. I'll probably do some work there, but I know I'm not far off from a drink when that happens. So, you know, just because we're sober, just because we're we're we haven't had a drink for 13 years, has been, it doesn't mean that it can't creep in if we're not aware of it, and we don't stay vigilant, and we don't stay on top of it, and we don't stay spiritually fit. I'm Larry, and I am an alcoholic.
Thank you, Larry. Pickle Chips, come on in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Terry, aka Pickle Chips, recovered alcoholic. You know, you know, the insanity of this disease has kind of stuck with me all week. And I've been thinking about the jaywalker. He's just jumped in my head several times this week, and the insanity of it, and looking for the insanity pieces in my life. You know, I know it's a fictional story, but it sure had a different meaning to me this time. And I've read it many times, but it really is about the insanity. And right now I'm not eating sugar. So at one point, I went 8 years without eating sugar, and I had 2 cookies. And that was the end of it for many years. So now I'm starting again, doctor's orders, and it's only been like 3 days, but the insanity of that addiction is crazy. I'm making up all kinds of crazy excuses why I should be able to eat a piece of birthday cake, because we had a birthday party the other day. And I had probably 5 or 6 reasons why I should partake. And it brought me back to the jaywalker again, and that insanity. You know, I tell myself that I'll never drink again, that I'll never relapse. But, you know, I see so many people, and not so many people, but I've met people over the years that had a lot of time that just picked up a drink. So I have to be ever so vigilant about that because I don't want to drink. I don't want to go back to that crazy place. And that brings me to the blackouts that they were talking about. My 21st birthday was a blackout. I remember walking in the place, but I don't remember walking out or driving home or getting ready for bed, nothing. But you know what? I didn't think that was weird. I didn't know it was called a blackout. But for some reason, I just accepted it. And, you know, many times after that, I have blackouts and I just shrug and go, oh, that's weird. But when I started to understand, you know, that some people, sometimes it would just take one drink and I was in blackout. And at one point, like Fred, I lost several days. I don't know who my driver was, though. That's the scary part. I was in one part, you know, of town, maybe 60 miles away from home, and a couple days later, I was home. So, and I don't remember any of it. And I don't want to ever go through that again, that confusion and that terror. You know what I used to think too is back in the 70s, there was a book named Sybil, and it was about a gal with multiple personalities, and they'd talk about how she'd be sitting in the classroom or something and looking around and not remembering the last 3 days or whatever. And I used to think that was my problem, that I had some multiple personalities going on. I didn't relate it to the alcoholism, of course, but anyway, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed hearing all the readings, and got a whole new take of it being the comment reader tonight. So thanks for giving me that opportunity.
And a wonderful job you did, Terry. Hi, Steph.
Hello. It's still Stephanie, recovered alcoholic. And this just brought to mind, I have a friend who doesn't live in my state, and was always popping in from somewhere. She lived in Alaska and Hawaii, and anyway, but so our friendship revolved into on the phone talking, or then later, Skyping. But she is such a huge trigger to me. And I don't understand why, her particularly, because I have a lot of friends that I used to drink with that are in the area, and I don't have a problem with them. But just thinking about talking to her on the phone makes me so anxious. And I told her in the beginning, when I came back to AA, I said, I just told her, in a text that she was a huge trigger. And she said, but I won't drink when we're talking. And it just doesn't matter. I can't talk to her. Just the thoughts of it gives me, I feel like I'm going to be like just sucked into it. And just like a vacuum or something. And it terrifies me. So I don't talk to her, and I know her feelings are hurt, and I send her cards. And that's that came in my mind while we were reading this. So, and also I have a note here about Fred, who we're reading about. And it says that Fred was actually Harry B., author of the first edition Big Book story, A Different Slant. And he later, he had loaned AA money to print the Big Book, but he later sued AA effort to get his money back. Anyway, that's all I got.
Thanks, Steph. Hi, William.
Hi, my name is William Alcoholic. Whenever I read Fred's story, in any alcoholic that share is some part of what they share. I identify with it and stuff. But for this Fred's story, it's like about 60 to 70% that I identify with. So I remember going back and talking to some members of my family and tell them about what I was doing in alcohol. They said, we didn't see nothing wrong with you. So I maintained employment from, say, about 16 years of age up until I retired, And success to me was to maintain employment, job, house, living over there, car, telephone, and all these other things, a nice place to live. And so I was able to maintain all of that. And I had came from a hard place in life. My mother and father both had died when I was 2 years of age. I lived with my aunt who had 7 kids of hers. It seemed like I was the 8 ball in that family. Everybody was always picking on me, So as I began to have this success in life, I thought it was because of my willpower, and I remember going into the having these suicide thoughts and stuff like that. So I checked myself in to a rehab, and in that rehab, they was telling me about alcoholism. And I remember the counselor telling me, William, when you leave here, go to AA. So I said, I could stay sober 6 months on my willpower. For the last time I told her I could stay sober 2 years on my willpower. She put a little envelope and wrote inside of that envelope and said, William, if you ever pick up alcohol, open up this envelope. I said, okay. So I took the envelope, bought all the literature and stuff, and I came home. I made a few meetings and began to get some information about alcoholism. But the thing about it, I couldn't stay sober. I couldn't stay sober. From 1989 to 1992, I kept going back into the bars, the clubs, hanging out with my old friends and stuff like that. And as soon as somebody say something like, what you drinking? I said, cranberry. Y'all told me not to drink. I said, cranberry juice, a club. So somebody said, buy them a drink over here. That's all they have to say. My mind said the rest of it, and I was off to the races, So, and I struggled in the beginning, and every time they read how it worked, I would say, and they would say, grave emotion, mental disorder. I said, that's me. I can't do it. So I tell you, I underestimate the power of the program and the power of God. So now, I do have a lot of other human issues, but it wasn't until I addressed the alcoholism that I was able to address those other issues. And I still have some issues, but I'm more aware of the behavior now than I ever was before, Because I only just obeyed alcohol. I was blinded by it, I only obeyed alcoholism, And this is the part where he say, you don't need a reason to drink. He say, well, not a horizon on the, he say, I felt physical fine. Neither did I have any pressing problem or worry. Business, success of business. And then it was the end of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. So I don't need to be depressed or anything to drink, man. It was a pattern that was so natural to me that I drank a lot of time, and I would hit my hand on the table and say, "F it, I might as well have another." And I love the way he started out. Yeah, I get me a little cocktail. I get me a little, and that was me. I'll buy me a little airplane, one of the little baller that you put up in your coat pocket and stuff like that. I started out like that, and by the time I had the second or third one of those, I was like, F it. I'm going to get me a fifth now. And that's the way it was, And until I really surrendered, to alcoholism, and began to do the spiritual part of this program. Showing up, not for me, showing up for me, but also showing up for others too. So to me, that became the spiritual part of it. Now, I didn't start, and my sponsor told me, God always put the right people in my life. Even whenever I was working and doing what I was doing, hard work and doing what I would do, I believe it because of my attributes. I tell you, one of my managers said something. Like, I was drinking. I heard him tell the rest of the people. He said, "If you don't mess with William, he would do the work of 5 people. But if you mess with him, he ain't gonna do nothing. Cause I got an attitude. I would get an attitude easily, man. You know what I mean? So he noticed that about me. So they just let me work as hard as I could, and I think because of that, people would take advantage of you for that. You know what I mean? And I felt like that. But I was blessed. I got my blessing out of it, you know. So, but I'm grateful to be here today and be aware and continue to learn about my disease. So that's why I keep coming, you know, because I don't have it all made. I have to keep coming, and I'm being a spiritual program. And one thing, I'm gonna say this in close. One thing that helped me the most is spiritual program, and I had to go through the ring as well, you know, the unconditional love. Just because you're another alcoholic, started because of that, and just because you're another human being, you know. Because I don't know, on the outside, we all look the same, but I don't know what you've been through, you know, in life, you know. So we like fingerprints when it comes to that. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and traumas that we go through as life unfolds in front of us. So thank you so much. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Hi, Jim.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, you know, I always identify with all of these stories, especially in, the beginning of step one, because even though I knew I was alcoholic for a good long part of my life, I never really could go all the way with step one, especially, admitting that my life was unmanageable. And looking at this, I was just wondering, as I started going back to it, and I was wondering if they actually even thought, when they said, we told him what we knew about alcoholism. He was interested and conceded he had some of the symptoms, but he was a long way from admitting that he could do nothing about it himself. He was positive that self-will would help him, self-knowledge. I wonder if they even if he ever let them even get to the point of mentioning step one, of admitting that he was alcoholic and that his life was unmanageable. Because like it said in the story, he had a great looking life, a nice family, everything seemed fine. And then he goes on to control his drinking for a little while. It doesn't necessarily say how long. But yeah, if you can't take step one, the whole thing of it, it's not going to happen. I mean, for me, I have to speak for myself, I guess. I had to totally come to terms with step one, and it took me a long time to really realize what step one was all about. But and also, with his relapse, when he relapsed, that's me, right to it. Even as many times as I had gotten sober and stayed sober for a while, and even when I went out to drink, purposely to go out and drink. It's like the thought came to mind, it'd be nice to have a couple of cocktails with dinner. That's all, nothing more. A cocktail, another cocktail, a highball would be fine before going to bed. Had one, several more, plenty next morning. Unbearable mental and physical suffering at the hospital. It's my pattern, in the end. And I'm done with it. I really am. I'm sick and tired of that. Reading this, it made me realize, yes, I really have completed my first step. Because, I know now for sure that I am alcoholic. Through reading this book, I've come to know what an alcoholic really is, and I know that I am one. And I know that my life has been unmanageable, because I've had in the past few weeks a good opportunity to look back on a good part of my life, and the changes that are happening to me just over the past month, for myself, have been really miraculous. Whether anybody else sees it or not so far, I don't know, but time will tell. And I love reading the big books. Every single time I read it, I get a little glimmer of something, which actually I need to write step one right on this paragraph. And yeah, thanks. That's all for me.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you, Trish? Nice to be here. Kathy, still alcoholic. So one of the reasons why I take a drink and then I take another drink, even against my own will, is because as soon as I pick up that first drink, alcohol makes every decision for me. Alcohol decides if I'm going to sleep with somebody, if I'm going to stay at the bar, if I'm going to drive home. If I was sober, it wouldn't be like that. But as soon as I ingest that first drink, alcohol has become like a higher power for me. And years and years ago, I was sitting in a bar in Portland, Maine, and it was freezing cold and snowing. I mean, up to your behind. That's how much snow there was. And the girl at the bar said to me, "We should go someplace warm." That's all she had to say. I said, "Okay, like where?" She said, "Let's go to Puerto Rico." Now, I had never been on a plane, and I didn't even know where Puerto Rico was in the world. But I said, okay, because alcohol was making those decisions for me. She told me it was warm there. We drove back to Boston, got on a plane, and I didn't know how planes affected your alcohol consumption. So I drank on the plane because I was my first plane ride, and I get to Puerto Rico, and we were supposed to stay at the Sheraton for 1 week. Well, I ended up living there for 5 years because, alcoholics, we're not only are we bad at making decisions, but we're lazy too, Like we can think about it, and especially in Puerto Rico, where you can think about it tomorrow, I'll have a drink today, And yeah, so I stayed there for 5 years. Those things don't happen to me when I'm sober. It's amazing. But yeah, that's my experience of what like Fred did. But I just changed. I changed countries, and I stayed for way too long. But I'm glad to be here tonight, and thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you, Kathy. We have no hands, so I'm going to jump in. I'm Trish, and I'm an alcoholic. And, I love how it talks in the beginning, far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he had come to the hospital to rest his nerves. And, I never ended up with in the hospital, but I sure did have an awful lot of people on my back about, you're drinking too much, you're drinking more than we are, you sure you should be drinking that? And I got to the point several times where I made up my mind that I was going to drink. And, that never stuck because I was never really that interested in stopping. Other people wanted me to stop. But it never occurred to me, just like Fred, that I couldn't stop. And, I had self-knowledge. I knew how I drank. I knew what the books said. I knew what other people said. I had friends who were in AA. I knew what they said. I knew where drinking was going to get me. And I figured, that self-knowledge, that knowledge that they've given me, that's going to keep me from drinking. Nope, never did. Never entered my mind anytime I picked up that drink one more time. Just one tonight. And then I reached that point where I had that moment of clarity, where I wasn't home, not like Kathy. I hadn't left the country, but I was a couple of states away, and I wrote home to my friend who was in the program saying, when I come home, I want to go to a meeting. because I was at that point where I knew I had to stop. And I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. And, you know, I love the comment in here after I ordered a cocktail with my meal. That's one. I ordered another cocktail. That's two. I went back after a walk and had a highball. That's three. And kept drinking. And then it says in the story, you know, I had a shadowy recollection of being in an airplane and finding a friendly taxi cab driver at the landing field instead of his wife. And the comment in there, did his wife know of his drinking? Did he call her in a blackout and say, hey, honey, guess what? And she decided then and there, I'm not picking you up in that condition. Or did she not even know he was coming home and he just happened to hail a cab? We don't know. But, you know, I can imagine the number of drunk phone calls that so many of us made, that he probably called and said, honey, I'm coming home tomorrow, and her probably saying, over my dead body are you walking in this house in that shape? And then the taxi cab picking him up instead of her picking him up. And who knows where he went. And then back to the hospital for the unbearable mental and physical suffering. I am well aware that my drinking physically did not take me to the point where other people's did. But I'm also well aware that, you know, I lost family, I lost circumstances, I lost things as a direct result of my drinking. And I thank God that I came in when I did, and I didn't reach the stages that some people did. But for a long time, I also felt that I could do this on my own. I didn't need your help. Far from admitting he was an alcoholic, he told himself he went to the hospital to rest his nerves. I wasn't an alcoholic. I had all sorts of other problems. And I blamed all my problems on everything but the alcohol, because I wasn't willing to admit that I was an alcoholic, even though, like Fred, he was well known, he was friendly, he had a happy family. And that was me when I wasn't drinking. I had the good family, and granted, I was still living at home with mom and dad at the time, but, you know, we were a happy family. And then all of a sudden I started drinking and they turned into ogres. Never dawned on me that that was me changing, not that it was them changing. And it didn't matter. End of a perfect day, not a cloud on the horizon. If there was a cloud in the sky, it was a reason to drink. If somebody looked at me wrong, it was a reason to drink. If it was a great day, it was a reason to drink. There was always a reason to drink. But there was never, until God brought me that moment of clarity, there was never a reason to accept that I was an alcoholic. And I kept pushing it off and kept pushing it off until I couldn't push it off any longer, and I had to look at myself. And then finally realizing that, and realizing, you know, there are people, there are circumstances, there are meetings I can go to who can help me with this. I don't have to do, for so long I was going to do it on my own. I had to do everything on my own. I was going to fix it on my own. I didn't need anybody's help. And then all of a sudden, I needed everybody's help because I knew I couldn't do this by myself. I knew I was not going to be able to lick alcohol on my own. I had to have other people in my life helping me, showing me what to do and how they did it. And it was finally admitting that to my friend, one in person, one by mail, who got me to my first meeting. And, you know, we had been good friends for years, and I was sharing this earlier. I don't know if it was last week or in another meeting. We had been good friends for years. But once she took me to that first meeting, we lost touch. I haven't seen her since. So perhaps that was our purpose in each other's lives. For me to support her when she got sober, and then for her to bring me into my meeting, into my first meeting. But, you know, I don't want to go back where I was, because I know each time I picked up another drink, it got worse. And I know by listening to other people in the rooms where I can end up. And I would much rather walk here with you folks and walk with my God than to go back out there and walk where I was walking then. And it's 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, all depending on where you are. Terry, are you there, and do you want to read our closing? Her camera's moving. Terry? Alyssa, could you go in and read our closing? It is in the chat for you.
Yes, Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. Thank you. And from page 164, our book is meant to be suggestible. We realize we only know a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you. And we will go ahead and close out in our usual primary purpose fashion. Because we are not in the same room and can't hold hands around the table, we hold our hands up in the screen, and that's our way of holding hands on Zoom. And we'll go ahead and we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight because they either haven't found their way to us, or because they found their way and they weren't ready, or they didn't want what we had. And then we'll follow that moment with the Lord's Prayer. So here's your moment. Thank you. Who brings us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father, who art in heaven,
Who art in heaven,
hallowed be thy
hallowed be
name. Thy kingdom come,
thy kingdom come, thy will be done
Thy will be done
on
on
earth
earth
as it is in
as it is in
heaven.
heaven.
today, our daily
Give us
bread.
this
Give
day
us this
our
day
daily
our daily
bread.
bread.
We
And
forgive
forgive us
those
our
who trespass
trespasses,
against us,
as we
And
forgive
forgive
those who
not in
trespass
temptation,
against us.
but
And lead
deliver
us
us from
not into temptation, but
thine is the
deliver us
kingdom,
from evil.
the power, and
For
the
thine
glory,
is the
thine is the
kingdom, the
kingdom,
forever
power,
and ever.
and the
power,
glory,
with glory
forever and
forever.
ever.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, everybody, and the